Welcome to Chiron's Tech News. Thank you for watching. A cyber attack has forced Colonial Pipeline to shut down all of their systems. They are the top U.S. fuel pipeline operator and transport 2.5 million barrels per day of gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined products through 8,850 kilometers, 5,500 miles, of pipeline, and transports 45% of the East Coast's fuel supply. While it's still early in the investigation, one former U.S. government official and two industry sources said the hackers most likely a highly professional cyber criminal group, reports Reuters. Industry sources said the attack was caused by ransomware. If you listen real hard, you can hear people crying who are worried about what's going to happen to this big oil company. Just today, the Chinese government's internet watchdog said it will ban some mobile app notifications and tighten regulations. They have been ramping up a campaign to rein in the growing influence of internet companies over its citizens' daily lives. I think that maybe, and I might just be wrong here, but the Chinese government may have some control issues. I recommend they do some inner child work to help find the deeper issues that give them the emotional payoff that comes from controlling others. But maybe it's just me. This past year has been very difficult to so many people for so many reasons. One group that has struggled throughout this is teachers who are finding that it's especially difficult trying to teach classrooms of children over Zoom. Ana Sal Romero is one teacher who spoke to this in an article with AP News, saying, "It's difficult for me. I'm a baby boomer. It's difficult with the technology, and I have learned more, but it is not enough. It is never enough." It goes into much more detail, but the thing is, many businesses, even non-tech ones, have been using more and more technology that lends itself to remote work. So for many companies, this transition to remote working was already, I guess, better than halfway there. However, teaching is such a nuanced thing, and educational budgets have traditionally, sucked when it compared to businesses and what they spend on the support and infrastructure. So even though there's been a lot of press about how hard it has been for both parents and students, it's important to remember how hard this has been for teachers. Our whole society suffers when education doesn't work for everyone. Oh, and for some poignant but good fun, Google George Carlin education quotes. Companies have been spending less on brick and mortar infrastructure and spending more on technology for over a decade now. But during this past year, the trend of investing in tech has accelerated. This Reuters article goes on to quote Stanford economics professor Nicholas Bloom, who said that it is this surge in work from home which is leading firms to spend heavily on connectivity. He went on to say that these sunk costs are the one reason that on average Americans will work 1 day a week from home even after the pandemic, up from about 1 day a month before. I think this is great, but from my own experience in technical project management and training in psychotherapy, I can tell you workplaces that can support remote work but just don't want to, it's most likely because overall the company is run by bullies. I'm actually being serious. If a company is well structured and organized, then it knows what people are supposed to be doing and how effectively they are doing those tasks. But companies that are run by a bunch of cowboy mentality types who promote the alpha maleness leadership myth and run their companies like the Wild West due to apathy and laziness, it's those who are going to want to pull back on this remote work thing. Why? Two reasons. First, it takes time and effort to create the tools and structure needed to organize, process, and projects within a company so that you know what work needs to be done and how to go about doing it. And second, how to ensure that both people have what they need to do it and that the work is able to be done in an ongoing and tenable way. But douchebag bosses are too lazy to make this a priority and even get off by barking disorganized orders to people and chastising them when they don't actually have what they need to get the work done. And now it's time for retro news. If you've heard of Wolfenstein 3D and Duke Nukem 3D, then you've probably heard of Apogee software. Well, it's been a couple of decades since the peak of Apogee software, but company founder Scott Miller and longtime executive Terry Nagy want to breathe new life into the original Duke Nukem developer and Wolfenstein 3D publisher, with a newish name and a new purpose, says this article from gamesindustry.com. biz. They have unveiled a rebranded Apogee Entertainment as an indie publisher, and they have 4 titles under its wing already, with aspirations to add more, Miller said in an interview. Quote, "We decided here in the last year to resurrect and relaunch Apogee, to kind of reclaim our title as the original indie publisher," Miller says. Quote, "We're working with indie developers again and cherry picking what we think are the diamonds in the rough." And there are a lot of diamonds out there. I recently restored an old 486 and played some enthusiastic Wolf 3D after I was able to resurrect my original Wolf 3D backup from my games collection on this tape backup right here. Getting that working was an adventure. Let me know if you'd like to see a video about that in the comments below. And finally, something that I'm not sure if it's retro news or not because it's kind of both. The Linux kernel was started almost 30 years ago in 1991, and since then, it has grown to far-reaching proportions. While now, the free and open source software that powers the heart of the operating systems that run most of the phones and infrastructure in the world hits the 1 million commits milestone. You can see it right here on their GitHub page. And it's actually at 1,013,390 as of right now. In fact, Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, also created Git, which powers GitHub. This is a brilliant version control system that allows developers from all over the world to collaborate on projects like Linux. Here's a list of facts about Linux. In 2021, January, 1.93% of all desktop operating systems worldwide ran on it. In February of 2021, it held a market share of 0.81% of the global desktop, tablet, and console market. In January of 2021, the net market share was 2.35%. And again in 2021, 100% of the world's top 500 supercomputers run on Linux. Out of the top 25 websites in the world, only 2 aren't using it. 96.3% of the world's top 1 million servers run on it. 90% of all cloud infrastructures operate on Linux, and practically all of the best cloud hosts use it. In 2018, the number of Linux games available on Steam reached 4,060. 95% of the servers that run the world's top 1 million domains are powered by it, and 85% of all smartphones are based on Linux. So it's kind of a big deal, because Linux is open source and free software. It means not only does it cost nothing to use, but the source code is freely available for anyone and everyone who wants to study from it or even expand upon it, as long as they respect that nobody's allowed to try and control it or lock it down. That's an oversimplified explanation, but open source and free software are a somewhat complicated topic I'm planning on doing a future episode about, exploring how the licensing works to help liberate software and people, and what users and programmers can do with it, as well as how it creates entire communities around it. That's it. I hope you have a great weekend.